welcome to this week's edition of Jewish Money. I'm honored to have a special guest on, Alan Silver, the owner of the local hardware store over here. They sell the best hardware you can get anywhere in Israel. Everything, you buy 5 things, you get 1 free, right? Only if you spend over 10 shekel. How you doing today, Alan?
Baruch Hashem. Thank God, Baruch Hashem. It means good.
Today I want to discuss business ethics, as someone who owns a store. And besides business ethics in the general sense, which applies, in the non-Jewish world there's concepts in halacha of Jewish business ethics. And I wanted really to talk about, maybe highlight some of the differences between them and your personal views on business ethics, because you're a really honest guy, I have to say, Alan, maybe too honest. You could be making nicely, he could be in a luxury villa over here, a luxury mansion, but he runs an honest, fair business, doesn't charge too much, even though basically you have a monopoly over the hardware business here in Telstone.
I think that the matter of a person, this is one thing, you can be black and white. Or you're honest or you're not honest. There's no gray area in that.
There's
area.
no one more honest than Alan Silver, so he's the best guest to tell us about this. So the first one, I want to go back, because you're originally from where? From
South Africa.
South Africa. And when you were working there in South Africa, you had a business in South Africa. What were you doing in South Africa after you got into the business
I
world?
finished school and did my Army Air Force training, compulsory, and then I went into my father's business. I had to work because my father wasn't well. I had to take over the business, and I worked there for several years. And then I moved over to one of my uncle's business, who was also in clothing, and I was a salesman, a rep, and I learned about sales and how to sell, how to treat customers. In fact, people should know that it's all very nice being an owner of a business, owner of a store, but the real people that are the face of your business is your salesman. And if your salesman is honest and straight and does good things, they are the face of the business. And in my dealings here in Eretz Yisrael with businesses, the representative, the salesman that comes to you, he's the business. You deal with him, you close the deal with him, you close the price with him, you close the way of payment with him as well. And normally the whatever the representative decides, is koveh, we say in Israel, whatever he decides is like Kodesh. That's it. It's a closed deal, like shaking hands with the balabait. And that's how it should be. And it's one or two companies that don't work like that, but normally that's the way. And it's nice to deal with a person face to face and close a deal and say to him, I want to pay you next month or in 2 months' time. And he says, yeah. And that's it. And he comes in 2 months' time and he gets his payment.
How successful were you as a sales representative in South Africa?
No, I did really well. I was in clothing, and
what type of clothing?
Was in men's clothing, more towards the black market, so to speak, in South Africa, because they dressed much better than the white population. They're smart people. They were self-respective more. They really it's their way of saying who I am in South Africa, and so we sold a better, high class type of clothing to that market, and
you would sell them suits,
suits and trousers. Yes.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
What's the best color suit for a black man?
No, there's no real. In South Africa, it's more conservative, so navy blue, gray, and black. Gray and black. So it's a dark color suits, brown also as well, dark brown, and
you sold, how many suits did you sell over the years?
Oh, many. You see, the thing is that in that game, it's seasonal. So I would only work 6 months of the year. I would get my summer range and go out and sell, and you have to sell production of the plant of the factory, and so if we could make 20,000 suits or 100,000 suits in a season, I would have to sell up to 100,000 suits myself and the other representatives, and we would have to see who can get to that target first. And so I used to go out for the first 3 months of the summer season. The summer range in the winter, it used to be always about like a year, 8 months behind. And I would go out for example, in February with a summer range that would be delivered June, July. And I would go out
Because
in
the summer in South Africa is actually the winter for the rest
yeah,
of the world.
sorry, yeah, that's right. Okay, but you get the idea, right? And so I would leave and start selling end of January, February, and by March, April, the production sold out, and it was up to the company to manufacture all the orders that we had sold from June, July, August delivery to the shops. So then I would be off that time. And I made my best time of use. I went to the kollel and I learned when I was off time, when there was nothing to do, so to speak. I was still service my customers with phone calls, but generally speaking, I was finished selling for the season, and 2 or 3 months in the summer season, and for the winter season, I would have time to go home and stay home and learn in the kollel for that day.
Let me ask you a question. If Brooks Brothers would have opened up next door to you, they put you out of business?
Who?
Brooks Brothers.
I don't know who they are, but
Brooks Brothers, you never heard of it? It's an American suit company, pretty famous. All the presidents in the United States wear Brooks Brothers suits. Did you know that?
We had a brand name called Mayfair slacks, and we also sold Botany 500, I think it was called, which is an American brand. We made those suits, and we actually had a black golfer called Lee Elder.
Elder I've heard about.
Yeah, he was a famous black golfer from the States, and he came to South Africa and he played in the South African Open, and my company sponsored him while he was here, and so he was part of the advertising. That really took off and made the Mayfair slacks, which we had, and Mayfair suits, a real brand name, and it really was very strong in the market. That's why we could work for 2-3 months and we sold out. There was just very big demand for it.
Now, I want to ask you something about the business ethics. We're going to talk about that in South Africa. Let's start with South Africa before we get to Israel. South Africa is notorious. It's not the safest place from what I hear. I've never been there. A lot of thievery over there. You know, you have to be very careful with all your personal stuff, especially at night. Yeah. Did you obviously did you encounter any problems with that in terms of people pilfering from your store? And also, what about the business ethics with the people that you dealt with? You dealt not just with Jewish people, you dealt with non-Jewish clients also. Were they honest people? How were the people over there? Were they honest? Was it difficult to deal with them?
Not really. I left South Africa 30 years ago, where things were very much more normal than it is today. There wasn't that type of thing of robberies and violence as it is today. In the townships or not inner city, they call it in America, it's pretty much okay, no problem whatsoever. Even going between towns was no problem at all. That's during my time. And but dealing with, I used to deal a lot with the Indians. We call them there. They're both Hindu and Muslim Hindus. Got on with them. Got on very well with all of them. And I think it's basically the concept of the Jewish concept, the Torah concept of Ahavta Recha Kamocha. If you treat them well, you treat them honestly, they're honest back to you. And it was a very nice relationship. We used to end up they coming to our simchas, and we would go to their simchas, and it's all PR, but it's more deeper than that. Because once you're doing business, you're part of the whole setup of the family. You got to know the man's wife and his children. They used to come to the shop. You used to say hello to them. You used to share maybe gifts during certain festivals or weddings or whatever. You used to give a gift, so you become part of the setup there. It's very nice. Very nice.
Did you encounter any people that were dishonest with you, that try to steal things from your store, try to rip you off, try to get a good bargain? How is it like in Israel? There's a lot of people haggle over prices. Is there price haggling over there in South Africa?
No, not really. First of all, we didn't have a store. We had a factory. We had 850 people working at the factory. A very big factory.
You didn't have a storefront also where you were
We had
selling
a storefront, but I was not involved with that at all. We had an Indian worker who was very good at selling anything, and I have a good story to tell you about that. But
we're here for all the good stories. Alan's got a lot of good stories. Listen up. Here we go.
So, this guy could sell a dead horse, basically, as we had the expression in South Africa. And so a guy came in December, before we were closing the factory for the Christmas break. He came a week before. He's getting married during December, and he came for a suit. So he went into the showroom where we sold all the overruns and extras that we may have, or returns from customers which were, they're not damaged at all. And he took one look at this guy. He's quite tall. Anyway, he didn't have his size, so he sold him something smaller. But I mean, it was a bit cruel because the tall guy, and he's getting married, and his suit's not going to fit him. Not fit him exactly.
How tall was this guy? Was he like an NBA center or something?
Yeah,
like that?
6 foot something. A real 6 footer. and so he sold him the suit, and he wrapped it up, and he went off. He went, and then we came back to work in January, in the middle, the 12th or something. January, always we had the Christmas break until then. And I come back with my uncle. I mean, as we're approaching the factory, we see this chap standing there, and I recognize him as the guy that bought that suit. And he's got the suit in his hand. So we open up the factory, and we go into the showroom. I went in with the guy, and the Indian salesman also was there. He came at the same time, and he said to him, "But this is too small." He says, "Too small? Not too small." So he says, "Put it on." I said, "Put it on." And it was very much too short. He said to him, "Whoa, you've grown so much since the last time I saw you." The Indian guy told him. It was funny.
And this is for his wedding, no?
Yeah, it was cool. I think it was
Those
cool.
wedding pictures were awful, huh?
It was cool. But it was Baruch Hashem.
Let me ask you one other thing. You mentioned, I was speaking the other day, you told me that you were involved with the kashrus in South Africa.
Right.
You want to tell me a little bit about that? There's a famous rabbi here in Israel now. From where is he from?
Rabbi Sternbach.
Sternbach,
Yes.
from Harnof.
Right.
He used to be a rabbi in South Africa. He was born in South Africa.
No, he was always in the Eidach Haredis in Israel, and he came to South Africa and opened up a kehillah, which will be for the more from Haredi community.
This is Johannesburg, right?
Johannesburg, yes. And he opened up a place called Torah Center, and a lot of people followed his. He followed him, and also because he's a godel. Even today, I mean, Kol V'chomer today, he's a very big godel. Everybody runs after him for brachas and is asking questions. Extremely enormous Talmid Chochem, and a lot of shalas and kashas. The stuff that normal rabbis don't have the ability to answer, he answers them, or they ask him. He's the rabbi's rabbi, put it that way, if you want to call it that way. Anyway, it was a big honor to work with him. And he would spend 2-3 months in the summer and 2-3 months in the winter in South Africa with our community. And I used to run his kashrus, his meat and his milk sections. And it was a very special a time of my life, and had the big privilege. Only unfortunately afterwards, when you're not there anymore, you realize how much you had before. It's always when you haven't got it anymore, you realize what you're missing, what I had. And very special, lovely man, loves everybody, good, idle, chanua, modest, very nice
Not his
person.
eulogy over.
Sorry?
It's not his eulogy over here.
Yeah, right. Baruch Hashem, no, he's lovely.
But you told me that you was a person who slaughters the animal, a shochet, who used to come
Yes.
to South Africa, and on the same day he would fly to Austria, right?
Well, it would be a week. He would come to South Africa for a week because we used to slaughter on the Sunday chickens only. So we had a chap, Rabbi Maisels, who was one of the chief shochtim of the Eid HaCharis in Yerushalayim, and he's also his own sheikhet, and he would bring him to South Africa every 3 months. I was in charge of the kashrus there in terms of running the show. I would give out the order forms. They would all the kilo would return the order forms. I would analyze the forms, then work out how many behemoths, how many animals, and how many sheep I had to order for the day's shechtim. Also, how many chickens we needed, how many thousands of chickens we had actually at the time, and we would slaughter all the chickens on the Sunday. And then on the Monday, we would go to the other abattoir and do the shechting of the behemoths, of the animals and sheep. And then after the shechting, we had to strip the animal down to meat only. No, remove the head and take off the skin and just leave. And also the insides are all left with purely the carcass that we eat. And then we should separate the hind quarter from the forequarter, because the hind quarter is where the chaylev is, and people don't. The frum people don't eat any part of the hind quarter, but there is a shita in the Beis Yosef where you can do what you call nikur, taking out the gidanashe of the leg, and you can the Sfardim mostly do it, and it's a very talented process to know how to do. I did learn it, but still wasn't happy myself doing it, and but we never did it in Rabbi Sternbuch's.
This is noteworthy because Rav Sternbuch is known.
Right.
He argues on Rav Moshe Feinstein, right? Rav Moshe Feinstein allows for nikur, allows for divining, I think it's called. But Rav Moshe Sternbuch, at that time in South Africa, he basically gives the psak, gives the authorization here in Israel, and he does not allow any part. And therefore, you go to any Israeli restaurant with one of the hechsherim of the Eid HaCharis, you will not find filet mignon on the menu. That's right.
And so we used to the bull or the cow has 13 ribs, and we had a chumrah through because of Rabbi Sternbuch that we cut the hind quarter at the 10th rib, so there was really no chance of any chaylev ever being part of it, and so one could actually say that hechsher in South Africa was the most mehuder in the world, because I don't think anywhere else in the world they work from the 10th rib up to the 10th rib only, and even then between the 8th and 9 and 9 and 10th rib you should do a nikur of just simile, what do you call it, just to do it, so we shouldn't lose the tradition of doing nikur, and then we would cut it up and put it in soaking and with the salt and the soaking in the water, and it took about 2 days, that whole process, and by Wednesday we already had the meat in chunks cut up into pieces, and the orders were made up, and by Thursday people used to come in and collect their orders, and that used to make an order. People had placed an order for 3 months. They had to work out their budget for 3 months.
And who provided the hechsher? Rav Sternbuch, right?
It was his hechsher and his sheikhet, and Rav Maisels, who was the sheikhet, also used to oversee the treberim and what I told you, the treberim, the 8th and 9th rib, and the salting and the soaking. He was there all the time, even though our own cells are only Yerusha Shamayim, but that's how Rabbi Sternbuch operated. There was no compromise, because he realized his shlichus as a shlich for his tzibur.
But you told me that there was discrepancy. The same shochet, there was a different hechsher where in Austria, right?
The same hechsher.
And the people in Austria would eat, I guess, from South Africa, but South Africa, neither would eat from either?
No.
Tell me the story.
I'll tell you the story, sorry. So the same sheikhet, Rav Maisels, Zang Gesund, I hope he's well, he would fly off from South Africa often onto Austria to do also a shecht. I think it's once a month he used to go there, and he would shecht for one hechsher in the mornings, and then a shecht for another hechsher in the afternoons. But the amazing thing was that even though it was the same sheichet, one wouldn't eat from the other's hechsher. It was just
There were two hechsherim in Austria
yeah,
itself.
there was-
Okay, not South Africa and
yeah,
Austria.
yeah.
Two in Austria.
And they
And
wouldn't.
that's interesting because you could understand one is more stringent than the other one, and therefore the more stringent one wouldn't eat from the less stringent one.
But the
but-
same hechsher, same shechet.
But the other one wouldn't eat. They wouldn't eat from each other's one. That
Yeah.
means that
Yeah.
both of them didn't trust each other. Let me ask you.
I think they're just held different ways, basically. One, they one didn't hold with this, one didn't hold with that, so they separated.
Before we get to Israel, just for a second, I want to
Yes.
just ask you because I think it really lends itself to ethics in the Jewish world, and that's the whole idea of these different hechsherim, different. There's so many, the proliferation today, so many different types of hechsherim, so many different types of kashrus organizations, and people are wondering, why do you need so many of these? A lot of people say it's a type of political stunt, that there's so many different hechsherim. Do you feel that the kashrus business has ruined the integrity of the business of Jewish food? It's become sort of a business to have hechsherim. Is it honest, or is this what should we be doing in your opinion, or is this something that's gone a little overboard?
I think it's a bit of everything there. It hurts me because an example of how it should be is South Africa. I had a chap come in to me from New York just 2 days ago. He's in my store, and no, yesterday. It was yesterday in my store. I won't mention his name, but he's in charge of kashrus there, and also in terms of food industry. And he went to South Africa, and he says it was a Gan Eden. It was a mamish, a Gan Eden to be there. One hechsher, everybody eats from it, and he says there's no. He said it was unbelievable. You go to any supermarket and you could eat from anything because everything had a hechsher of the Beis Din in South Africa was covered. And there was no machlokas. People weren't like not holding by anybody. When it came to the meat, so people were a little bit more stringent. They would take Rabbi Sternbuch's hechsher, but there was the Beis Din regular hechsher, which was also on its own level, and a good level, and everybody would eat, even overseas, and even one of our rabbonim that live here in Eretz Yisrael today, who are from South Africa, still allow people to eat from that hechsher, because as he said, he had never experienced it in his life that he can go into any store, anywhere in the country, even to these, what do you call it in America, 9-11, by the
7-Eleven?
7-Eleven by the petrol stations.
Yeah.
They were about to go into the petrol station store and buy something to, huh?
They're called gas stations. in
Gas
America,
station,
yeah.
okay, yeah, gas stations, yeah.
Petrol.
They have a store there or something selling snacks, whatever it is, not made there, but I mean pretty pre-made snacks. All have hechshers of the Beis Din of South Africa, and everybody could. He says wherever he went, he found what to eat, and that's how we should be. But as I say, we've got to respect our gedolim and our rabbonim, and unfortunately. It's maybe a bit of, in terms of honor, in terms of whatever.
I would say, I'll tell you a story I heard from an owner of a store near the Mir in Jerusalem. He had a store there, and he had a different hechsher, and then he got the Eida Chareis hechsher, which is the hechsher of Rav Sternbacher that he's in charge of over here in Israel. He told me, I asked him, why did you change? He said, I'm not going to say what the other hechsher was. He says, the Eida Chareis is the only hechsher where there's no nonsense that goes on. Even the best hechsherim, which a lot of the ultra-Orthodox Jews, the Haredi Jews here in Israel rely on, there are a couple of hechsherim. The only one is the Eida Chareis. The other ones, he says, if they mess up, they bring in something non-kosher, they say, we're removing your hechsher. And they say, how much money you want? And they name an amount, and they give them the amount, and the hechsher is back. Just don't do it again. I mean, this is a little unsavory. In the kashrus, which is, one of the foremost, at least, people think about Judaism, they think, Shabbos and kashrus has become almost monetized over here, politically monetized. It's sad for business ethics in general, and Jewish business ethics, definitely, which I want to lead to the fact that you have a store here, you have a hardware store here. Tell me a little bit about your belief about, first of all, business ethics in general, and second of all, which And second of all, Jewish business ethics. Is there a difference between the two? Are Jewish people more stringent in them? And how do you relate to business ethics as an honest person yourself?
I think there's just one concept that should run everybody's life. There's one concept, a Torah concept, and we learn it from very young children. That's all that decides my life in everything, and especially in my business.
You should love your neighbor as yourself.
Love your neighbor as yourself. So what happens when you come into my store? I'm looking at me, not looking at you, because I'm treating you as I would like you to treat me, and it's very simple and easy once you have that concept ingrained. And so I really enjoy dealing with myself every day and all day.
You always have a smile on your face. I have to say that. Always a joke and a smile.
And so it makes things so much easier. I have people that buy things and then they want to return it. Now, if I have no problem with returns, I actually don't even insist on a receipt. If a person bought it from me, we believe the person and we give him back his money or we exchange it, whatever you want, no problem. But then the question comes in the state of the product. If the product's been opened and it's now not so...
It's not going to be easy to sell it again.
Right. So I'm not the poisek, the guy that decides. The buyer is the guy that decides. He asked me, will you take it back? Mm-hmm. So I say to him, look, I want to ask you a question. If I would offer you this, would you buy it like this? That's what
And what do some people say? Yes, I would buy like this and return it and get their money back.
No, but
has that ever happened?
You look into his eyes and he'll tell you the truth that you would or wouldn't buy. It's as simple as that.
I'll tell you. You deal primarily with Telstone, where it's an ultra-Orthodox community. The one thing there's numerous positive things about this community, but one thing I've noticed very positive about this community in general is that it's very honest. I can leave my wallet here in the shul for 2 hours. No one's going to take it. No one's going to touch it. So it makes more sense that they'll be more careful in honesty. But you even told me a story the other day. You were telling me, tell a story, because it's a very interesting story about a little young boy that pilfered something from your store. You want to tell the story?
I've had a couple of stories, but the one that I really comes to my heart, and I think every parent should internalize this, and that is that I caught this youngster. He was 12 years old, and he stole something, and I said to him,
"Stole walkie-talkies, right?"
He says, let's go back to the thing. We were cleaning up the store, and we found this empty box lying there. So we went back in the cameras to see what is going on here. How did it get there? So we went back in the cameras, and we see the youngster coming along. He comes with a set of walkie-talkies in a box, takes out the walkie-talkies, and then throws the box to the side. That's how we found the box there. Anyway, a while later, half an hour later, he comes back into the store and realized that the walkie-talkies don't work without batteries. So he went and stole a whole 4 batteries. They go a set of batteries as well.
You wouldn't favor the batteries.
So if you can't work without it, it doesn't work. Geht nicht. So and then he walked off. So we had it on video. We knew I'd seen the kid. We know he comes in quite often, but we didn't know his name. So about 3-4 days later, he comes in the store, and my son recognized him, says to him, "What's your name?" He told his name, and then he asked why. I said, "No, it's okay. I just want to just know who you are." Yeah. So then my son got hold of the father and told him about it. First of all, denied. No, my son wouldn't steal. No, he's not. And there's a guy who's
father was an avrech.
He's an avrech, very
living. He learns the whole day.
Very chashuv avrech. And he says, my son wouldn't do that. So we showed him the video because we had downloaded it, the segment, and he said, "Yeah, that's my son." So he said, "Okay, leave it to me. I'm going to deal with it. I'll deal it with him." So he went off. A week later, he comes back to the store, and I was seeing him. He says to me, we did. He's going to be working the money off, and he'll do kama mifsaim, what do you call it? Special.
Small payments.
But you're
Small
gonna do
jobs?
you're gonna do things, to get money, and you'll pay off the item. Sure.
How much did it cost, first of all? How much did you
It
sell
was
it
a
for?
99 shekels.
99 shekels.
It
which is
wasn't
like almost
it
$30.
was a decent set. It wasn't these plastic rubbishy.
Do you have a better one, a better walkie-talkie?
This is the medium one. There's a even
Wait,
better
why
one.
is he not stealing the best one? That's
No,
the
'cause it
question
was-
I
it was
have.
in
How
front
much
of-
does that one cost?
Well, that's 250 shekels. It's in front of me.
The expensive stuff he keeps behind him. You don't trust everybody, right?
You don't want to make too much of a yetzer to anybody. Yeah, Baruch Hashem. And so, but I've also got a cheap one for 30 shekel, which is very cheap. It will work from room to room. This thing's got a radius of about 2-3 kilometers, and the other one's got a radius you can pick from here to Mavaseret, which is about 8 kilometers.
About 6 miles.
A decent range, and so then we said, okay, that's it, and then I had a bit of a sore moment, basically, when I saw that the person's chinuch is not what it should be. Because he came back to us 2 weeks ago and he said to us, I've been thinking about it, and from what I've learned, he's not chayav, he doesn't
Not obligated.
obligated to the full price. He's only obligated to the cost price, what you lost.
And how much was the cost price? Just
I'm not sure, about 60, 70 shekels.
Okay, so we're talking about a difference of about 30 shekel over
Yeah.
here, and about $10.
But the concept.
The concept, right?
Yeah.
So this is because he's an avrech and someone studies the Torah extensively and the halachas of the Torah. He felt that according to Jewish normative monetary law, that he was not obligated to pay the full price, the retail price. So he was obligated to pay the cost price.
Now, apparently, there is a day like that. There is somebody does hold that way. They are.
In the non-Jewish business world, it'll never be like that. I mean, no one would ever say such a thing like this. This is one of the differences I'm highlighting. At least there's an opinion that says something like this. So he came to you.
And he said to me that my son should only be obligated to the cost price. Now,
Did you look down at when he said that? Were you a little disgusted?
we
His
were-
kid stole from you,
Yeah.
right? And now he's trying to haggle a price for you based on some opinion in halacha, which definitely, according to the world,
It's
he would
not-
be obligated to pay the
full
retail
price,
price.
yeah.
So did that distress you a little bit?
It
Specifically,
disappointed me. Because, in actual fact, what came to mind is that, wow, that's a good business. You can steal something and pay cost price. Steal something and pay cost price. So it doesn't work.
Figured
that way.
it out, right?
Doesn't work that out. Doesn't work. So I did
that's the way a lot of the people in Kola afford things because and I'm joking. I don't
right.
steal things.
No.
It's a joke. It's a joke.
I asked around several of the Rabbonim and the Poskim. They were all horrified to hear that a person would hold that way, and that that's not the way we hold in generally. In fact, there's a day or even to pay double.
My opinion to pay double the amount.
What you
Kefil.
just sold. But I don't know. There's certain circumstances in that case.
So
But
what
still,
did you leave off with this person? He's going to try to repay the full price.
he
or-
hasn't come back since.
He hasn't come back.
Since then, we haven't closed the deal yet.
He
but
changed
2
his
weeks ago-
phone number
2
also.
weeks, 2 weeks ago, it was, give him a chance. Had Yom Tov, the whole story. Yeah, give him a kapschut. And but that's the whole thing about business. I'll tell you something else. Another story. I caught another kid also stealing, also 12 years old, and I sent him
What
off.
was he stealing?
He stole, I think, cassettes, music cassettes. Those days we used to have cassettes. It was many years ago.
CDs?
15
tapes?
before the
This was
CDs.
this was a long time ago.
Yeah, it's about 15 years ago.
Okay.
And so he stole. I caught him and said to him, "We'll go fetch your father." So he obviously told his father. He came at 8:30 when I closed my store. He came down the stairs with his father, and his father pushes him into the store. Says, "Go say sorry." So I said, "Well, hold on 1 second. I have to ask you a few questions." So I said to him, "I want to ask you, what is your tafkid in life?" Tafkid is?
What's your job in life?
What's your role in life?
Your
Is
role
the
in
role.
life, okay.
What is your role in life? What's your tafkid? So he looks at me, he doesn't really know what I want from him. And I look behind as his father also saying, what are you asking? What do you want from him? I said, well, okay. So what is your tafkid of your father? What is your role of your father's role? So he didn't really know what I really wanted from him. So I told him, your father is there to educate you, to bring home money, to work, to look after the family, and discipline. That's the role of your father. He says, yeah, that's right. So I said to him, is your father doing his role? Do you doing his tafkid? I said to him. He said, yes. So I said to him, now what's the role of your mother? So he started to get the idea. Now my mother works at home and she cooks and she washes and she cleans and she looks after the children, and fantastic. I said, right, great. And your mother does her role? He said, yeah. So I said, right. So what's your tafkid? What's your role? And he didn't
Steal.
No. So he didn't really know what I wanted to say. I said to him, your role is to give your parents nachas. As a child of 12 years or even younger, your role is to give your parents nachas, make them proud. That's your role. So I said, what you have to do is obviously not to steal, to be good, to listen to your parents' voice, what they tell you, to learn, to read and study, do your homework. That's your role. That's your role in life. And that was there. We ended up the sikha, and off he went. Now the lovely part of the story is that every Shabbat he davened in the Hasidim where I was davening at the same shul. He would come up to me, say to me, Kolbo, which I'm known as in Telstar.
Call that's the name of the store. Kolbo Allen. Everything is in Allen.
He could be Kolbo. I'm still doing my role. In other words, it went internalize himself that he had a role in life to be good, to do something. And I think, and he used to come every Shabbat and say to me, Kolbo, I'm still doing my role. I'm still doing my tafkid. It's the most wonderful story, and I think we can all learn. How
old was he when he was saying this?
He was 12.
No, I'm saying when how many years did it go on for?
For 2 years, and they left Telstar. But you should know that as a boy that I caught stealing, we became good friends. And in fact, there's been quite a few, unfortunately, not millions, but I mean, there's been at least 10 youngsters that have caught stealing over the 30 years I'm in the business. And each and every one has become a good friend of mine. We've turned it into a positive situation. We can always make good out of evil, and we've done it this way. And I think the lesson from this thing is that if everybody knows what their role in life is, their tafkid in life, and the tafkid is clear. If a husband knows to be a husband, and a wife knows to be a wife, and like in America today, most women want to be men, and men want to be women, and the woman expects the husband to do I don't know what, which is basically her role, and often it messes things up, and people end up having an argument when you don't do what you're supposed to be doing. And so the kids also should be given roles. They should know the role in life is to give nachas and pleasure,
pride and joy
and pleasure to their family, to their parents and their grandparents, and they should be aware of it all the time. It makes the world much better place that everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Did you ever have any adults that stole from you or dishonest with you? Or you said a bunch of kids. Not really.
Not really. No. We the community. When a person gets over bar mitzvah, is normally pretty much okay. There's no. I haven't that problem now.
So I think that's one of the notable differences, at least in the ultra world, like the Haredi community, which you've been part of, is that people are pretty honest. They're not gonna go behind and steal from you, especially the younger kids, maybe because they have a more. They're not as mature, but the older people are more careful with these things. But obviously, if you go into the non-Jewish business world, you gotta watch out because they
have a Yetzer Hara. We're up to the age of 13. They say that the Yetzer Hara of a youngster is much bigger than the Yetzer Tov, the good inclination. So the bad inclination takes over, and but once they start getting clarity of what's good and what's bad at Eid Bar Mitzvah, they normally go in the right direction. I also quite strict with people, with kids, when they paying and this type of thing. Is sometimes they say they haven't got money or they haven't got whatever it is like that. I know which family they come from, and I know that they have money. So I tell him, all right, no problem, come back tomorrow, you can pay me the 1 or 2 shekel you're short. And suddenly he'll find in his deep in his pocket the other shekel. He doesn't want to come all the way back to my store to pay 1 shekel. So I know you have to know who you're dealing with. You know, it's but obviously many times I do mavater. What do you call it? Mavater, to
Let go.
To let go. Yeah, okay. We have to love the kids. You have to love your parents. You have to love everybody, and it's a much more and beautiful life if you, as I say again, if you look at the person on the other side of the counter as yourself, you have to love him. You have to love him because everyone does love themselves in some way. And if you're looking at the other person and you love him, you can't do anything wrong to him. You can't shortchange him. You can't give him a bad product. You can't give him bad advice. In fact, that's another thing I would like to mention to you, is that, you know, when we go to Yom Kippur, we clap on the things, Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu, very serious things, very serious matters are being said. And one of the things we also say is Ya'atz Nura, give bad advice. And now, if it's in that same realm of bad advice as stealing and killing and whatever it is that we make video confession about, so after that's a serious matter. And I take this seriously all year round. If I do not know something and somebody asks me a question, I tell him I don't know. And one should work on that way. People walking in Jerusalem in streets, and you ask him how to get to the Bituch Laumi, he doesn't know. He just tells you go straight, you know. Obviously, you keep going straight, you end up somewhere near the Bituch Laumi. But if you don't know, say you don't know, that the person can ask somebody else. And if I don't know something, I can't give him an honest answer, I'd rather not answer to him, sorry, I don't know. And people have too much pride to say they don't know. It's a thing we have to work on ourselves.
Do you believe that you were raised Jewish, you were born Jewish, you were born Orthodox? So you were born Orthodox. I guess you identified always as more of the ultra-Orthodox? You were born into a family
no, I wasn't
like
ultra. I was a very traditional Orthodox.
Traditional Orthodox.
But I was born in a family where my father, Zichron Bracha, was a businessman. And one of his last words to me before he passed away was, Alan, always be honest in business. And it was one of the most powerful moments that I still get very emotional about that. And that was his.
That was his parting message. For
that
you.
was
That's
his parting
message. Impressive.
His Yerusha.
So I got the right person to talk to about this. But let me say let's say, for instance, you theoretically would grow up not Jewish, not affiliated with Judaism at all.
Yes.
Do you think it's because of your affiliation to the Torah, like you mentioned, we learn from the Torah you should treat a fellow like you would want to be treated yourself? Do you believe if you were not Jewish, you would have the same approach? Or is it rooted in the Torah? Is it rooted in the Torah? Or is it just human nature? You feel that when you're in business with someone, you want to be fair, you want to be an honest person. It's not necessarily per se related to the Torah. We find proof to this. We find backup to this in the Torah, but it's something that's basic business ethics that you would practice even if you were not born Jewish.
I think we have two things there. We have a human instinct, and we also have the animal instinct, and depends what's ruling your way of thinking. If you're a human person and you really love your fellow human being, you will tend to not be dishonest, tend not to do the wrong thing, and tend to do the right thing if possible. But if your animal instincts are on are running your show, running your body, running your way of life, then the jungle instinct comes, the jungle laws come into the thing. That if I'm strong enough to grab it and take the food, take the money, I do it, and nobody can say anything to me. And so we've got to realize that we have the animal instinct of the jungle, law of the jungle in us, but because of the Torah and how we taught and how we live, we are taught to control those urges. We need those urges. We need those urges for eating and for making a living, wanting to make a living. But we've got the crown above it of the human instinct, which is ingrained in the Torah, and so one cannot really be become an animal without being ridden or driven by the humanist Torahic laws of the world.
Would you say that?
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Would you say that that so you're basically saying that the reason you would do this is because of the Torah, implying that, let's just say not you, but people that are not Jewish people. You say non-Jewish people are less honest in business than Jewish people. I mean, at least we're talking about people who observe or are strict in following the laws of the Torah, like the ultra-Orthodox community. Would you say the Orthodox community, maybe even the conservative and other traditional types of people who see Judaism, who practice Judaism, would you say they're more cognizant of business ethics, they're more adherent to business ethics than a non-Jewish person? What's your opinion about that?
No, I think it's I don't think it has an area that's
there's no generalization.
Generally, yeah, it's everybody
good.
wants to do the right thing, and it's a matter of, again, if your animal instinct kicks in, no matter what, then the person has a problem. But if it's not controlled, then that person has a problem. But I must tell you, the difference is between dealing with the Frum community is that it's done in such a beautiful, nice way. There's so many ulterior things that the person has in mind. I have a guy that comes into my store and he buys something for 10 shekels, and he has an account and he puts on the account, and he always asks me, how much, he says to me like this, I'm not going to pay you today, but how much do I owe you? In other words, there is something in the Torah, in Chazal, that's written that you're not supposed to mislead the person into thinking that you want to pay. And he's makpid, he's very strict. So he says, when he asks me, how much do I owe? He first starts by saying, I'm not going to pay you now, but how much do I owe? It's a special person. He's thinking of the other person's feelings. Maybe he's feeling that if I ask you how much you owe, and you say 40 shekels, and then you say, okay, thank you, and walk off, then I'll be disappointed. He doesn't want to have that type of feeling. That's the difference in the Frum communities, that people think of a higher level, put everything into a higher level. The honesty is
more sensitivity. You're saying
is major. And I have a photocopying machine, and people make photocopies in my store, and you'll be amazed that if a person makes a photocopy and it doesn't come out, they insist on paying on the mistake as well. A lot of people would have tend to say, no, okay, I don't want one copy and I'm making 2 copies. I want to pay for the 1 copy. No, people offer to pay for the second copy. It is, they say it was their fault or whatever the reason they may think, but they offer to pay, that I shouldn't be a loss. We shouldn't. Also, they are doing v'ahavta lecha kamocha. They don't want me to lose money on their behalf. It's a beautiful thing when you apply this whole concept of v'ahavta lecha kamocha, do unto others as you do unto yourself. It runs the whole world.
I would say, just to summarize what you're saying, if I'm getting this clear, is that basically it's human nature to be someone who is an honest person, someone who treats other people. It doesn't matter whether you're Jewish, not Jewish, religious, observant. It doesn't make a difference. That people have an innate sense. I believe that's part of free will, that we're born with a conscience, and we know that we have to make the right choice and do the right things in life. And part of that is being honest in business. I will say the difference I think you're highlighting between the Frum Jewish community and the rest of the world is that Jewish community tend to be more sensitive on the one hand. Like you mentioned, the photocopy machine, they'll pay you. I guess in the rest of the world, if it didn't, they'll blame it on the machine. They'll say it's not, I don't have to pay for that. But on the downside is that sometimes you have like that example of the learned person who will try to get away with something, on a religious basis, say, according to the strict interpretation of the Shulchan Aruch, the normative halacha, the normative laws. So you have that balance, though, so it's pretty much the same, but I think those are the key differences.
But I think that type of person is very, very scarce, very scarce. Normally, people try and do the right thing, the good thing, and I think the difference is like this: is that in business, these people coming to buy in the store, they always have the Almighty in their minds, their Yirat Shamayim, their fear of heaven, their that's all part of their outlook, and that's why they are honest. Put it this way, they are the Shem Shamayim, in the name of God. They are honest. I deal with very many Arab people here as well. The Arabs from Abu Ghosh come to buy from me, and one or two times I gave them wrong change by giving them too much. They said to me, "Oh, sorry, you gave me the wrong change. Here's 10 shekel back. You gave me too much." It's beautiful, and I think it's, again, if you show your love and your affinity to anybody else, they'll return it to you in good favor as well. It runs the whole world.
Just there's two other things I want to talk about. First of all, we'll make it short. You could make a lot of profit, right? You have a monopoly over here, hardware. If someone needs hardware stuff, the only place to go is in Telstone, right? So I know you have relatively cheaper prices. You have fair prices. I'm not saying, I don't think you undercharge, but I don't think you exorbitantly overcharge.
Yeah.
You could price gouge in a certain sense. You choose not to do that. Do you feel sometimes an urge you'd like to earn more money? Are you satisfied with what you have? Do you feel part of business ethics is to charge a fair price, even though technically I could get away with charging more and people would buy the same thing for a higher price, but you feel innately, I have to be fair, and obviously I need to make a profit, but I can't abuse and take advantage of people?
Absolutely. There's my biggest competition, even though I'm by myself here in Telstone, is Jerusalem. I want a person to go into Jerusalem and check and see a price that he bought from me, and see the same price, and realize that he can buy from me with his eyes closed. I may be on a few items. Look, specials I can't compete with, because that's chain stores by hundreds and thousands of the same thing, and they get a very good deal. But regular at merchandise, at regular stores, at regular neighborhood shops, you won't find me a shekel more than that area, because I want people, again, I treat people like I want them to treat me. It's again the same concept. Now, I just want to mention something. You mentioned about price gouging. You know, we had the problem with COVID here.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that we had the masks were first coming out, and you were the only place that sold the masks. And you could have sold the mask. You needed a mask at that point, right? To get into buildings.
Compulsory.
And there were so few masks to go around. You had masks.
Yes.
And you could have, people were price gouging all over the world. People were price gouging for these masks. You had the N95 mask at the beginning when it was, and you could have got away with it, and you didn't. You made profit, but you didn't price gouge, and that was impressive, in my opinion.
You should know that there's another concept I live with, and that is, I don't like to make money out of people's sorrow. And I saw the sorrow and the terrible feeling of this whole COVID thing, and I actually went out of my way and cut the prices. I saw people selling.
You lost money on them?
Didn't lose money, but it's almost at cost price. I sold them. And I sold these masks. I cut the price down. They were selling before at 60 cents, 60 shekels, and 50 shekels in some of the private houses. And I said no. And I did a bit of an inquiry, found a place, and I ended up selling in the beginning of the COVID for 30 shekels. And I brought it down to 20 shekels in the end as the prices came down. And then when the prices really settled down, so then I went out of the market because I wasn't making money. It didn't pay me to turn money over. And so the market took its own courses. But I would not let people suffer because of the situation. And the same thing when it came to the testing kits for the COVID home tests. There also were a lot of price gouging. I cut all the people out. Maybe it wasn't a bad thing that people couldn't make a panacea in the thing, but I didn't want my community to suffer and have to overpay things. So I remember the kits were 30 and 35 shekels, and I came in at 20 shekels, and it was costing me 18 shekels. I made so small 2 shekel profit on it, and and I sold them. And then slowly, the prices also came down until we went down below my 18 shekel cost. And in fact, my cost also started to come down. But I said, all right, now it's, the price settled down. You can buy it everywhere and anywhere at cheaper prices, and I let it go. But I just have a concept in my heart that I cannot jump on somebody. Price gouging is a terrible
Character trait.
a character trait, very terrible character trait. To try and to take advantage of somebody who is in trouble, somebody that's suffering, and he's got his back against the wall. Again, I wouldn't like somebody to do it to me, so I don't do it to other people as well.
It's just a quick story. I heard about this. They're taking the bar at some place in America. They're giving the bar exam, and there was no food there, and it's a long test. I think like the whole day, and they were selling sandwiches for $50 a sandwich. I think it was like tuna fish. So that was a non-Jewish place. I'm not saying non-Jews are like this all the time, but I'm saying you see people price gouge. It's very common. The last thing I want to talk about is something I wanted your opinion on, because I consider myself a person who tries to do the right thing, according to the Torah, according to my conscience. It happened to me a couple of times. The first time it happened to me in recent memory, I was at the Mir. I bought some flowers or something like that from the flower guy who was selling flowers, and I had walked already all the way to the van that was going to transport me back to where I live, and I realized that he gave me too many flowers or something like that, or maybe I didn't give him 5 shekel, and I owed the guy money. So I decided at that point, first of all, time-wise, I don't know if I can make it back if I gave him back the money. So I said to myself, listen, it was a mistake. I didn't try to pay him less or to take the extra flowers. It was a mistake. I didn't do it on purpose. If he wants, he can come after me and try to get it. And there's been a lot of other examples. I was in a toy store, Amazing Savings in America. We were buying a lot of toys for the kids, and we were buying a doll for my two daughters. Two of my daughters had the same doll. And by accident, when we were paying, one of my daughters was still holding onto the doll, and we didn't realize. And we didn't pay for it. It was like a $15 doll. And we got home, and I said, I'm not going back to Amazing Savings, which was, a 20-minute, half an hour ride, just to return a doll for $15. My wife does not happy with me. She says, no, you gotta go back. And she told my parents about it. My parents felt the same way, and they drove back to Amazing Savings and paid the extra $15 for the doll. My opinion is like, if it's a small thing, a small overlook, and even up to 100 shekel. I once was in the Makolet here, the grocery store. I bought rib steaks, and the rib steaks, it's like 120 shekel a kilo. 2.2 pounds is about $40, let's say, for some rib steaks. And the person, instead of, you have to weigh it, you see how much it weighs, and then you charge per the kilo how much. And he just put it on, and he didn't weigh it. When he weighed it, when there was nothing on the scale by accident, and per kilo, and it was I paid 1 shekel for, it was 150 shekel worth of rib steak. So I got home, and I told my wife about it. She got to go back and pay. She said, but the guy at the store, he's not going to make you pay for it. So I listened to my wife. I'm not happy. I argued with my wife about this, but I know probably how you would feel about this. But he did charge me for that. Of course, he charged me. What's your opinion about this? When it's a big aggravation to go back for a small denomination of money. Listen, if it was a large, for example, my wedding, the band at my wedding, it was very cheap. He was starting out. He paid 1,300 shekel for a singer and a keyboard. By mistake, my parents gave 2,300 shekel, an extra 1,000 shekel. The next day he came, he returned the money. I agree with something like that, a large amount of money, but something which is a hassle to go back. What's your opinion about that? Just curious.
Well, as I say, it does happen sometimes you give wrong change. And so it's happened a couple of times that I gave a 10 instead of a 5 shekel coin. And so the person gets home and he sees that I gave him too much money. So I don't expect the person to come back. I tell the guy, take 5 shekels, put it in stocker, put it in charity, and it's in my name. That's how it solves the problem. Everybody's happy.
What would you do? If you were the purchaser, would you return?
I
you-
would return. Yeah, I would
Even if
return.
it was a hassle to go back and you could miss your ride back.
It doesn't have to be today, but yeah, I would go back in the future. The cheshbon, the situation always remains until I've paid for it, and I would go back and pay as such. It's very important.
This is why I am the interviewer and you are the interviewee today, because you're a lot more honest. Maybe not more honest. You're a lot more strict
Experienced.
and experienced
Yeah.
with business ethics. Thank you so much for coming on today. It was a pleasure to have you, and continued success with your store. I think you should make some extra profit. You know, move into that bigger house with a swimming pool. I think that
I'm still paying rent. I don't own my house.
you don't own your house.
Yeah,
you
that's-
really could.
I haven't made the money,
Make
and
some personal business advice to you. Not that I have such business knowledge, but
Yeah.
you know, make some more profit. But don't charge me anything extra.
I like to look at everybody in the eyes and know they're getting a good deal. And the reason why I haven't made money is other reasons. Maybe a lack of good disciplined running of the business, but it's my fault, and I don't think the public should pay for it. If I may mention one more thing, have we got time?
Go ahead.
Just one question, an ethical question that I'd like to ask any business owner out there that has their own business. We were dealing all the day with cash giving and taking change and whatever it is like that. And you, as you know, you start the morning. I start my business with 300 shekels float in the cash register. And at the end of the day, you've sold 2,000 shekels. You should have 2,300 shekels cash in the cash register. The 2,000 goes out to the as your sales, and your 300 remains as your float. So at the end of the day, you take out your Z, we call it in Israel, the summary, right? The summary of the day's
Inventory?
thing. No, the summary of this day's sales. And sorry.
It's okay.
So at the end of the day, you go and it says you got 2,000 shekels sales, and you take out the 2,000 shekels, and you find that you haven't got 300 shekels. What happens if you've got 320 shekels in your register? Means you gave somebody shortchanged 20 shekels. So I have a small little pushka, little box, where I put that 20 shekels in that box. Now that money, if I'll put it the other way around. If I shortchanged, let's say I only find 280 shekels, so I gave somebody too much change. Kapalatam or not, you can't help it. That's what happened. But when I give shortchange somebody, I put that 20 shekels, if I've got too much in the register, into this pushka, and I spend it on public things. I buy sidurim, I buy chumashim for Beit Knesset. That if somebody that I'd maybe gave wrong change, there may be, please God, will have some type of use of that money indirectly. But when they go to shul and they daven, they take out the siddur that I donated, and they still it won't be a short change. But I didn't take it for myself for Bernstein, and it's not stock, it's not charity, it's money not from Maisa, from tithing the money. Then it's money that belongs to the public, and I go out of my way to do things, to buy watches. The urn for hot water I bought for the mikveh ladies, the ladies mikveh. I've painted the sidewalks where you can't see the step. I painted with white paint. I paid a little boy to go and paint it for me. And this is how one's got to look at everything. You've got to be honest even nobody's looking. Nobody would know. But I know, which is
You're
more
asking a
important.
question to other people, or you're making a statement over there?
I'm making a statement that 20 shekels that somebody didn't get from in change is not mine, and I'll never find out who it is. But I put it back into the public, and the public should know. And the chumashim that I donate. If you look here, I'll show you a chumash here that says they're donated by Korbo Aaron, but it doesn't say from Maisa, Lero Kesef Maisa. So it's not tithes. I just have to fix up the cheshbon as being correct, and that I shouldn't benefit from anything that's not mine.
I believe that's actually what the Talmud recommends. Talmud recommends that if you stole money, you don't know who you stole it from, you should use it for sarchei rabim, which is
Right.
things that benefit the public. We'll end off by saying, Alan, I can give you some personal advice. You could also help the public by also opening a private swimming pool in your backyard. I will come swimming over there. I will make use of it. It'll be for public use. I'll invite my friends also to come. So maybe that's better than buying the chumashim, in my opinion.
We have to record the priorities of the tzibur. Yeah, Baruch Hashem.
All right. Thank you very much, Alan. Be well.
It's my pleasure. And it was an honor to be on your show. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I have the best show in the world, right?
I'm going to check it out.
You're gonna check it out. Catch me in like a couple of years, blowing up, billions of people.
Yeah.
All right. Very well.
Thank you.
Thank you for having.
All
Thank
the
you for
best.
coming.
Bye-bye.
Bye.